Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 15 of Montana's 69th legislative session and the Blue Bench podcast. It's your weekly update on politics in the 406. My name is Shannon O'Brien. I'm a former legislator and statewide candidate, and I'm a retired teacher. Today we have a special guest as my co-host. Jorgie Hawthorne is a recent graduate in both journalism and political science. She was president of Montana's College Democrats, and after graduation, she became a staffer for our gubernatorial candidate, Ryan Busse. And now she's doing amazing things for Democrats all over the state. Jorgie.
Hi, Shannon. I'm stoked to be here with you today. I'm the Gail Stoltz Fellow for the Montana Democratic Party, and as a born and bred Montanan, I'm thrilled to be working across the board to help support and organize Democrats, especially in rural areas of our state.
That's great. Well, as hokey as it sounds, we have so much to learn from you. And we all know that while the legislature saw improvements, last November did not go as many of us had hoped. So thank you for sticking with the cause and sharing your skills and knowledge with the team.
Absolutely. It's an honor, and it's more fun than folks might think, especially when my press pass gets me about 5 feet from Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Then again, I've always known her as AOC. I was really thankful to both of them for how many Montanans they let speak at the rally on Wednesday.
Yes, indeed. It really has been, the talk of the town, or rather the talk of the state. But before we dive into that excitement that was here in Missoula, let's give our listeners a very quick update on the legislature. How's that sound?
Great. So you took a trip over to Helena this week, Shannon, and what was going on? There's still so many things that need to be sorted out, like the budget and property taxes, but we're getting pretty close to the end of the session now.
Yeah, I have to say, it felt like legislators in both chambers are really tired. They've been working very hard. They are closing in on day 80 now of most likely 90 days or less, or maybe a few more. But it's looking as though Thursday of this week is House Bill 2. Will have it start, and which is House Bill 2 is the primary state budget. Most agencies are paid through that House Bill 2. And it's when you're looking at a 4 or 5 inch 3-ring binder full to capacity of papers explaining the bill. It's pretty intense. So it takes a few days to go back. And then after it passes through the Senate, the House will have to see it again, and amendments will have to be approved. So it still could be a little bit.
This winter, heading into the session, 2 big priorities for Democrats were passing Medicaid expansion and passing some form of property tax relief for the middle class. We saw Medicaid expansion get done pretty early, but how are things looking on the property tax front?
Yeah, housing and property tax, schools, childcare, those were all big priorities. And like, as mentioned, Medicaid went through. We're sure hoping at the federal level there. But, property tax, they're just struggling with. And there are 2 bills that made it out of Senate committee, tax committee just recently that are due to be on the Senate floor. We'll see what happens there. They've been amended. But the property tax issue continues to be probably the highest priority, I'm going to say, for most Montanans. When people were knocking doors, that's what they heard the most. And to know that the legislature is so close to the end right now without a good solution is really discouraging.
Yeah. Do you want to explain House Bill 155, the Democratic property tax bill, just for our listeners again real fast?
Yeah, this is a great bill. So both Mark Thane, who was the sponsor of House Bill 155, and Jonathan Carlin, Representative Carlin, 154, they were really strong bills to address the crisis. And Mark Thane's bill has made it out of committee, and that essentially establishes a threshold for it reduces the by $50,000 reduces the value of a home is the primary piece.
Is there anything else we should be looking out for as we wrap up the session, Shannon?
Yeah, who knows if they'll be able to sine die or adjourn for good next week or the week after. But I think that there have been discussions about childcare and housing trusts because we do have a significant surplus, and those would be pretty impactful ideas that could come out of the legislature. And so I'm keenly keeping my eye out there, in addition to these property tax bills. So
Awesome.
we'll just see. There's a lot that happens in these last few days, and we'll just see how everything plays out.
Well, I'm glad to hear that things are moving around, and I do hope that we see some kind of property tax reform for Montanans before the session's out. But I don't think we can keep our recap of the Bernie AOC rally from our listeners any longer. Are you ready to switch gears?
Absolutely. What an exciting time. It was such a thrill to be there. And I saw you spent a lot of time out with the crowd before and after. And before we dive in, what were your kind of key takeaways from the day, Jorgie? I'm curious.
Totally. There were so many people. I've been in the Adams Center quite a bit as I went to school at UM and graduated in the Adams Center, but I don't think I've ever seen that arena so busy. I spoke to people who drove in from across Montana, but also folks who made the trip from Idaho and Washington, Wyoming, and I think that says a lot about how serious people are taking these threats from President Trump and the Republican Congress. Everyone I spoke to in line was super fired up. They're tired of not being heard by their representatives, and they're tired of their livelihoods being sold out to line the pockets of Elon Musk and his billionaire buddies. And a lot of them spoke about needing some hope, and my guess is that they found some of that on Wednesday. I'm going to share a quick clip from Senator Sanders' speech.
They always find some minority, and they say to the whole country, you got all kinds of problems, that's who it is. It's the immigrants, it's transgender people, it's gay people. That's how they win. They divide us up. But when we stand together, black and white and gay and straight, there is nothing that can stop us.
Shannon, I spent a lot of time in the crowd and in line with folks, but I've never really been to a rally this size. You've been to at least a few. What are your takeaways from the event this week?
Well, the energy was great. And, we'll talk a little more about the high school students and the college students that just steal my heart always. But I also think just the basic concept so many people showed up for of fighting the oligarchs and the oligarchy. And it has been for so many years, this idea in our system of campaign finance that the option is if you can raise the money or if you have the money, then you can buy the votes. And we saw our current governor in his first election spent millions, I believe it was $7 million of his own money to invest in his own race. And, if we want an oligarchy, then let's have that conversation and make that decision. But I think we're all running on the premise that this is a democracy and it's a republic and we get to vote for who we want. And if only the wealthy are able to vote, that's just not acceptable. And then additionally, there was so much discussion, both with the senator and the representative, about the division of wealth in our country and how, Elon Musk has the same amount of money that 55% of our population has combined. And the working class, how we certainly, we're the wealthiest nation, yet if you're working 40 hours a week, many people are still living in poverty, and it's not a radical idea in the wealthiest nation to expect that you have health care and that to expect that you can find housing and that you can live a healthy life with a home and a house over your roof and be able to pay for food for your children. And we're at a point in time in our country, the best country in the world, I still believe that we're in a point in time where that's not an option and that American dream is not possible. And college, which is what allows for the American dream of strong education, is in serious jeopardy. And so, things are not looking good. And until we are all ready to make a serious change, things are not going to get better. So we've got to make the difference. It's up to us.
I think their message was great and so timely, Shannon, but the two of them didn't just talk about politics. AOC actually spoke a lot about building community and why that is also so important right now. I'm going to roll that clip, and then I want to hear your thoughts afterwards.
Great.
Beyond elections, our task is to build community. Block associations, volunteer groups, advocacy organizations, PTAs, because community is the most powerful building block we have to defeat authoritarianism and root out corruption.
I love that. I also liked what she had said earlier, not in that piece, but that we're in it for the long haul. And I think lots of times folks they let the issues get in the way, their passion for the issues, and recognize that this is about building relationships and that community piece. And she had said at some point in time that you pull 10 people together to show up at a PTA meeting or a school board meeting, and the next thing you know, if you have 10 people show up, you're a community organizer, in quotes. And I just love that too. And finding the thing or the things that are important to you and resonate with you, whether it's crosswalks and sidewalks and bike lanes, or it's protecting our clean and healthful environment, or it's early childhood, or whatever it is, do something and see what you can do to make a difference in your garden patch. And I think so many people feel like politics are for those people over there, not for me. And if that's the MO that we're operating from, then we're all in big trouble, because a democracy is based on community. We're based on our getting along and knowing our neighbors and showing up. So I loved what she said there.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been the Montana way of life as long as I've known it. You show up for your neighbors. And I think we saw the best of our community highlighted on stage early on in the rally. We had local speakers from all over the place come and speak before Bernie and AOC did. Shannon, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my friend next to me, I kept saying, oh, this is my friend. Oh, this is my friend. Oh, this is my friend, like I was a kindergartner. And it is, Montana's a small town. And if you show up and you're nice to others, even if they have different opinions, then you're going to have lots of friends. I loved what Sam Forstag said about being union strong. And this is a time when unions have been under attack. And unions, especially in Montana, but nationwide, continue to come out ahead and stronger simply because Republican or Democrat or moderate, people know that we are nowhere without our workers. Our economy is nowhere without our workers. And Sam was able, as a firefighter, wildland firefighter, Sam was able to represent all of those people who have been laid off by the federal government, and that puts our homes and our lives in danger. So it was fascinating to learn from him. Ann Hedges from the Montana Environmental Information Center has this unbelievable breadth and depth of knowledge as an advocate for the environment and a clean and healthful environment, as our Constitution states. She's just been great. In fact, she was our guest last week on the podcast. And then Tracy Stone Manning has been a champion of the environment in so many ways over the course of many, many years at the federal level and at the state level. And to hear her talking about and quoting Bob Marshall, who is really one of the sacred historians of our open spaces and public lands, it was just great to see her as well, and help tie it into Montana and how the federal government is affecting Montana. Because guess what? What Tracy Stone Manning said is true. They are looking for tax cuts for the wealthiest at the federal level, and they're paying for it. Their intention is to pay for it by selling our public lands. So that means those very, very special places along the Clark Fork River or the Yellowstone River or wherever it might be will be potentially gone and sold off to wealthy ranchers who can afford to have it. So we have to fight for our public lands.
Absolutely. And we had two of some of Montana's best advocates for public lands and environment open up the rally. We had two plaintiffs from the Held case open up the rally, Olivia Vesovich and Lander Bussey, and they knocked it out of the park. But I did notice that it was a pretty young crowd throughout the line and throughout the speakers, and that's uncommon sometimes in politics. What does the presence of so many young people say to you, Shannon?
Well, I think that what you said to start with Held versus Montana, is something we need to keep close to the forefront. The legislature has been doing lots of damage for that area. The MEPA, the Montana Environmental Protection, has been losing integrity because of the laws that have been passed. But yes, these young people are starting to get more and more involved. And I think with this Gen Z group, it's really, I think we saw it with millennials, but this group of people I am witnessing as a Gen Xer, that this young group honestly believes, and you're part of it, Jorgie, it's like you honestly get it, that you can and will make a difference. And that's something that very few Gen Xers really got, that, show up and make a difference, that we would just typically get distracted. And so to see so many young people there just absolutely warmed my heart.
I think Lander put it best in his speech. He said, you can either get on board with what we're trying to do here, or you can get out of our way. And I think that's the message from a lot of young people right now. And I believe you spoke with two high schoolers who were similarly fired up, no?
Yeah, there was a great, the Montana high school Democrats are more organized, I think, than any other time in history. There are at least 60 members right now. I'll put a plug in there. They're raising money to go to the national conference and become members of the national organization. And so there were at least, I have no idea how many of these kids were there, but God, it was so insightful to see them and watch them get excited and the hope there. And I had a great conversation with two young women from Sentinel High School who had the energy and were just so thrilled to share. And they just shared with me a little bit about what they were doing. Sage, why don't you tell me what inspired you today to say yes when you heard that it was an option for you to come and watch Bernie and AOC and hear what they had to say?
I think it's really inspiring that these people who are super involved in our government and trying to protect our rights people that are coming to our town in Montana, and it's a thing where I thought that it would change my life. You know, you don't get that many options to hear these people who are fighting so hard to protect you and advocate for you, and I just wanted to be inspired, and yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say this is definitely a moment in time that you will be telling, you'll be sharing this story for years and years, decades to come. Lovis, what about you? Why did you come today?
Well, I've really been a fan of Bernie, especially because I used to live in Vermont when I was little, and my parents have really liked Bernie, and we just like everything that he stands for. And so the fact that AOC2 and Bernie are coming to our small town Missoula, like Sage said, it just feels like such a big deal and something you can't miss.
Yeah, the high schoolers were just fabulous, and the Montana college Dems came from all over as well, and they're really interested. And I think, to your point at the very beginning of this discussion, people showed up, and people are showing up all over the country for these rallies that of Bernie and AOC, and I should say the senator and the representative. But I think that's a telltale sign. And Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez mentioned in her remarks that they were, in response to these rallies, the representatives and senators from some of those areas, like Boise and like LA, and there was one other location in California, and Salt Lake City, that representatives were pressuring leadership to fight for the threat to Medicaid expansion. And that in and of itself is just huge, and a sign that we can make a difference by showing up. Yeah, I think with the big rally and with the legislative session coming to an end, and we didn't even talk about the Public Service Commission getting ready to vote on upwards of 9 or 10% increase in Northwestern Energy's rates. I guess the big takeaway for me is what I'd love to share with the audience is stay involved or get involved. If you haven't been involved before, I think some of the things that people feel is that, you know, Bernie is a radical and AOC are, you know, they're these radicals. But the truth of the matter is that overwhelmingly, the data show that we have a middle class that is disappearing. The wealthy are getting wealthier. The more and more poor people cannot find housing, cannot afford housing, and cannot afford food. And these basic things, and you can't find a job for a entry level that is for our workers. We are the change. And Tim Walz was here in Montana in early March, and one of the messages he said was, if you're waiting for Superman, if you're waiting for some dynamic, phenomenal leader to show up and fix all of this and get so that we can all get behind them, him, her, whoever, that's not happening. And that person is you, and get involved. I can't tell you how many of my friends have reached out to me and they're like, Shannon, I've never been involved in politics and you have. So what should I do? What do I do? Go to a local Democratic Central Committee meeting. Go to a PTA meeting. Go to a school board meeting. Do something. And talk to some friends who are somewhat like-minded and find out what they're doing. And talk to some friends who maybe aren't as like-minded without this concern or effort to try to change them, but to try to understand them. And that first understand, then be understood concept is so true and so real that only then can we be ready to make a difference. So that's my spiel.
Absolutely. And getting involved takes courage. Taking that first step can be so hard. And if you are looking at it and you've got no idea where to start, send us an email at the party. info@montanademocrats.org, and we can get you plugged in to your first steps. It can be that easy, I promise.
So true. Thanks, Jorgie. This has been great having you on. Really appreciate your time and all your expertise.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here.
All right. Thanks, folks. Join us next week.